Hey, today is Book Lovers Day. Yes, Book Lovers Day. So this isn't National Book Lovers Day or International Book Lovers Day. It is simply Book Lovers Day. So I believe the day is supposed to celebrate those of us who love books, maybe not necessarily books. But regardless, I have been a big reader since I was yay big, tiny kid. I remember, I have to be completely honest, I was reading things like Stephen King when I was in like 5th and 6th grade. So when we were doing book reports, some kids were doing book reports on the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and I was doing book reports on Salem's Lot. So love books. I'm sure just about every one of you out there as well is a big book lover also. So very cool. Anyway, so put down that book because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again as your host here at the Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. So today is Thursday, August 9th. Thursdays are RPG days around here, and I am going to take a first look. I'm going to crack it open, take a first look at the first role-playing game product coming out from Renegade Game Studios. It is Overlight, and I am going to dive into it for the first time in just a bit. So I have to point out, saw earlier today the Vice President was announcing Space Force. I don't know. It blows your mind. It really does. It blows your mind. And I'm all for space exploration, possibly putting a colony on the moon as a stepping stone to going to Mars. But that is not what Space Force is about. Space farce, I guess we would say. It's all about flexing military muscle in space. Ridiculous. It actually goes against all these treaties we've had for decades. So honestly, I don't think we're going to see it happen. But still, I think it's pretty ridiculous. Anyway, not going to talk too much about news of the day as far as politics and things like that, because we have more fun things to do. So before I get into the news, I do want to talk about chat being available. This is a live stream. If you happen to be watching live, feel free to say hello or chime in, or if you want to see something a little closer with Overlight, by all means, say something. It is not on screen. That's how I keep some of the more oddball commenters at bay. But I will respond. And if you have a question, just want to say hi, by all means, say hello. All right, so let's get on into the news, because there's a good amount of news today. And it's kind of role-playing game heavy, I must admit. And there is a role-playing game that I thought was going to release at Gen Con. I was pretty pumped to take a peek at it. It did not. It's actually coming to Kickstarter. It's on Kickstarter right now, and it is the Expanse role-playing game from Ronin Publishing. And I've got the dope. The Expanse role-playing game brings James S.A. Corey's award-winning series of science fiction novels to the tabletop. Using the adventure game engine, Age, rules found in Fantasy Age, Blue Rose, and Modern Age, The Expanse takes players to a far future solar system where humanity is divided. Martians, Belters, and the people of Old Earth struggle for political power and resources. But even older alien forces are stirring in the universe, and human history is about to take an unexpected new turn. The Expanse applies the fast-playing and action-based Age rules to spaceships, solar colonies, and adventure and intrigue in the far future, where the actions of the characters may change the course of history. As longtime fans know, The Expanse was a role-playing game campaign long before it was a series of novels or a TV show. we are delighted to bring it full circle with this game. And here's the best thing about the Expanse RPG. We've been working on this for well over a year, and the rules are done. They've been through multiple iterations and playtesting, and we've worked closely with Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. Together, they make up James S.A. Corey. Throughout, to ensure we are getting the Expanse right. The Expanse is based on the exciting new modern age rule set and includes many of its features such as customized character building using backgrounds and professions, drives for character engagement, and an abstract resources system. It also makes use of the modern age approach to action, exploration, and social encounters, complete with stunts and systems for all of them. There is a Kickstarter video. It runs about a minute and a half, so it's fairly short. So let's see what Green Ronin has up their sleeve as far as the Expanse. The Expanse role-playing game is nearly 1,000% funded as of right this moment, and you can reserve a copy of the core book and GM's kit in PDF for a $30 pledge, or you can receive the books in physical form for a $70 pledge. These will also include all unlocked stretch goals, and there are quite a few that have been unlocked, and the crowdfunding project runs through August 22nd. The expected delivery of the PDFs is this November, with the physical books to follow in January of 2019. Gotta say, I am a big fan of The Expanse, both the book series as well as the television show, and I got turned on to The Expanse early, and I find it funny because with the TV show, I had kept telling, for an example, my best friend Elliot Miller over at voiceofe.com, dude, you've got to watch The Expanse. It's excellent. And it took about 6 months for me to finally get him to watch the show. And that was already in the second season. And he binge watched it. Him and his wife watch it all the time now. And I am very, very happy that Amazon did pick up The Expanse after Sci-Fi decided, it's too expensive for us. So really looking forward to checking this out, because as most people know, The Expanse did begin as a role-playing game, as kind of an online role-playing game that was originally going to be an MMO. So I think that's pretty interesting how it's come full circle. North Star Games is going to be bringing Quacks of I believe it's Quedlinburg to North America in late November, and I've got the dope. Of course, it's based on the German game. Welcome to Quedlinburg, where the best miracle doctors and quack surgeons from all across the land gather to brew their concoctions. I love this part. Against smelly feet, homesickness, hiccups, and lovesickness. Yes, I need a concoction for my smelly feet. Every quack has their own special brew, and they hope will make them the best miracle doctor in the land. The Quacks of Quedlinburg is a strategic push-your-luck game where each player draws from their potpourri of ingredients until they think that their own special blend is just right. But be careful, a few too many special ingredients and the whole potion could blow up in your face. Do you stop early to improve your chances of making a better potion later that will win the day? Or do you risk a big setback in order to get more money and fame now? Finding the right balance between risk and reward is key. The German language edition, Die Quacksalber von Quedlinburg, won this year's Kennerspiel des Jahres. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, and plays in around an hour. The Quacks of Quedlinburg will carry an MSRP of $60 when it arrives in November. I was not familiar with this game whatsoever as far as the German language edition or the foreign language editions. I did actually get to see some demoing of the Quacks of Quedlinburg at Trade Day Demo Night. So I did get a closer, I didn't play it, but I did get a closer look at it. Looks pretty neat. Looks like an interesting game where you're just trying to concoct all these oddball medicines and hopefully you don't mess up in the process. All right, as I mentioned, news is pretty heavily flavored towards RPGs today. And the Tiny Supers role-playing game is going to be entering its final hours for Kickstarter funding for Gallant Knight Games. And I've got the dope. Eventually, here we go. Come on, speed it up here. Come on. Gallant Knight Games is happy to present the latest genre book for our Tiny D6 minimalist role-playing system, Tiny Supers. Using the rules in this book, you'll be able to play superheroes of all types, from paragons and exemplars to super science heroes of the future or past, to cosmic guardians defending the far reaches of the galactic civilizations from untold threats. Character creation is simple, fast, and exciting. You pick your character archetype based on the exciting stories your game master is going to tell. You pick a few traits or powers that each grant a single benefit, and you're done. For the first time ever, a Tiny D6 game will have its own detailed setting as we bring the Gallantverse to you. Sometimes as a GM, you don't have time to plot lengthy, detailed worlds, but you want that experience. Well, we've got your back, and that support comes in the form of microverses and our signature setting, the Gallantverse. Microverses are short settings filled with adventure hooks and designed to put your adventures and campaigns into high-action adventure. Our goal is to fund a softcover edition, a limited number of hardcover collector's editions, and the Tiny Supers dice. We've planned several stretch goals which will increase page count, add more art, add more special rules, but all of our goals will provide you with more fun and engaging superhero tabletop content. Tiny Supers uses a simple, fast, and dynamic rule set to handle actions. The game uses up to 3 6-sided dice as part of action resolution. If you roll a 5 or 6 on a die, your check succeeds. Most checks are made with 2 dice. However, if you are deemed to have an advantage on a roll, you gain a 3rd die to roll. If you have a disadvantage, you lose a die, rolling only a single die. Characters are made quickly and easily. You will select a superheroic archetype, such as Paragon, Gadgeteer, Defender, Mastermind, or more. 3 traits or powers, and write down some basic information, and you're ready to play. As of right now, Tiny Supers is already over 350% funded on Kickstarter, and you can reserve a copy in PDF plus all unlocked stretch goals at the $13 pledge level, or you can score the physical book and PDF at the $25 pledge level. The expected delivery of the game is March of 2019. have to say, I had checked out Tiny Dungeons, or Tiny Dungeon? I think it's Tiny Dungeons, singular, from Gallant Knight Games, and I thought it was very cool. I thought it was perfect to kind of introduce fantasy role-playing games to younger players or people who haven't played role-playing games. And of course, in my opinion, it wasn't really designed for big, long campaigns, but really, really easy to jump into, get a character rolled up, and start playing. So, in fact, I reviewed it not that long ago, really liked it. So I am going to have to assume that Tiny Supers will be just as good as Tiny Dungeon. So you've only got through the end of tomorrow, I believe. I believe it ends tomorrow evening. I think there's about 28 hours, 29 hours left in the Kickstarter as of right now. So pretty sweet, and artwork looks pretty interesting as well. And finally, the November solicits are out for Pathfinder and Starfinder. And I've got the dope from Paizo Inc. And there's lots of goodies as always. For Starfinder, we've got the Starfinder Adventure, the Diaspora strain. Diaspora, I should say. That's how it is. Diaspora is how it's pronounced. And it is the first part of the Signal of Screams adventure path. A vacation on New Elysium, a luxury resort located on an asteroid in the Diaspora. Boy, I'm going to have a hard time just looking at that word all the time. Goes horribly wrong as the facilities malfunction and the guests and staff turn violent. Hate when that happens when I'm at a resort. The heroes must protect themselves and aid those who have remained sane, including a wealthy android tech entrepreneur. For a second, I thought it was just going to say wealthy android, who might have some information about the cause of this madness, if he can be rescued from the old mining tunnels below the resort. The heroes must find a way to stop the growing delirium, even if it means going through the guests, including a celebrated champion of the vicious sport of Brutaris, who has been transformed into hideous abominations. The Diaspora Strain is a 64-page full-color Starfinder role-playing adventure game adventure for 4 7th level characters. For 4. Did I say 4th? It's for 4 7th level characters. Need to grab a sip here. As I previously mentioned, the adventure begins the Signal of Screams adventure path, a 3-part campaign in which players must race to find the source of a mystical signal that warps both minds and bodies. It also includes a way to model forms of corruption that can taint a character's soul, advice on running horror campaigns in the Starfinder role-playing game, and a selection of creepy new monsters. Diaspora Strain arrives November 11th and will carry an MSRP of $22.99. Then we've got the Temple of the Peacock Spirit, which is part of the Return of the Rune Lords adventure path for Pathfinder. And it continues as the heroes turn their attention to the Cult of the Peacock Spirits, a mysterious and dangerous group whose remote mountain temple holds shocking secrets and terrible dangers. By braving the perils of the Temple of the Peacock Spirit, say that 5 times fast, the heroes might just be able to prevent a truly mythic foe from emerging into the world. Temple of the Peacock Spirit is a Pathfinder role-playing game adventure for 12th level characters. The adventure continues the Return of the Rune Lords adventure path, an exciting extension of the Rune Lord saga set in the frontier lands of Varisia. A selection of new monsters, an exploration of the evil outsiders known as the Asuras, and the revelations of powerful rituals from the ancient realm of Thassalon round out this volume of the Pathfinder Adventure Path. Temple of the Peacock Spirit will also arrive November 11th and will carry an MSRP of $24.99. Then there's the Pathfinder Player Companion Martial Arts Handbook. For some heroes, the strength of the self holds more potential than any other training. These practitioners use martial arts to hone their own bodies as weapons, or they wield deadly weapons in combat as extensions of themselves. Pathfinder Player Companion Martial Arts Handbook delves into the various traditions, techniques, and styles of those who push their physical forms toward perfection. From fearsome kicks and punches, to expertise with mighty weapons, to harnessing the power of Ki, or Kai, it's K-I. This player-focused volume provides new archetypes, feats, styles, and weapons that allow characters to make the most of their own combat skill. The Pathfinder Player Companion Martial Arts Handbook will carry an MSRP of $14.99 when it hits on, you guessed it, November 11th. Also, there's other items that are supposed to be available on November 11th, and of course there's the flip mats and maps. So there is Pathfinder Docks for $14.99, Pathfinder Classic Warehouse for $13.99, there's the Starfinder Hospital for $14.99, and the Pawns for the War of the Crown Adventure Path will now be available in November for $24.99. Lots and lots of goodies from Paizo. Of course, the Pathfinder 2.0 playtest has kicked off. I have a copy of the PDF. I believe they've just released kind of like an adventure too. That's come out as well. Gotta be really, really honest and say I have not even taken a peek at the PDF as of yet. I have heard some feedback from people talking about the various changes, and from what I understand, it sounds as if the system itself is kind of, I don't want to use like terms like dummied down or anything like that. I believe like the mechanics are trying to be kind of geared to be a little more accessible for players. Sort of what like D&D 5th edition did compared to 4th edition. Kind of streamlined a bunch of stuff. I think that's sort of what we're seeing with the new 2.0 playtest for Pathfinder. But I know a lot of people are into it. A lot of people are really, really pumped about it. All right, so that is the news for today outside of one last additional item I want to point out. My friends over at Victory Point Games, so victorypointgames.com. Why did I say Victory Point Dames? Blah, 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 blah. It's only English, Chef. It's only English. You've been speaking it for 50 years or so. Anyway, there's a summer sale going on over at Victory Point Games, and you can save 10% on everything, on all the titles. Usually when they do a sale, there's some games like Darkest Night 2nd Edition that don't qualify. As far as I understand, everything at Victory Point Games is on sale through August 13th at 10% off. So wanted to share that info with everybody. Okay, so before I jump into Overlight, I wanted to point out what's coming up on tomorrow's show and then early next week. So on tomorrow's show, I am going to unbox and take a first look at Tiny Epic Zombies from Gallant Games. This came out at Gen Con. I believe it's coming out into stores in like October, if I remember correctly. I have an interview with Michael Coe that should be up in the next few days. I have so many interviews I've been just trying to get through. And you know, I don't like half-assing the graphics and stuff for the videos. I try to have some halfway decent graphics for the videos, for the interviews. But I'm going to take a look at this. I'm excited because I will get to play this over the weekend as well. Then on Monday, I will be unboxing and taking a first look at Everdell. Upside down. There we go. This is the collector's edition of Everdell. I really dig the artwork. I think the artwork's very, very cool. Let's try to get rid of some of the glare there so folks can see it. Now, this is a sleeve on the outside of the box. So I believe this is a sleeve indicating that this is the collector's edition. This is a tableau building game. Really has a wonderful table presence when I saw it at Gen Con. And I'm hearing through the grapevine that it's pretty easy to get into, and it has some surprising depth to the strategy. So that's on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I am going to review Tiny Epic Galaxies, which I have been playing quite a bit of. I'm really enjoying it, so there's a hint what I'm going to have to say in my review. So we've got that. Then on Wednesday, I believe, if something doesn't appear out of nowhere, I'm going to do my review for Fort Sumter, the Secession Crisis, 1860 to 1861, designed by Mark Herman from my friends over at GMT Games. So that's what's cooking on future episodes. So I know folks are tuning in. They want to see Overlight. We are going to jump into this in just a second here. But Overlight is from Renegade Game Studios. It's written by Paul Alexander and Butler George Holland, with art provided by, and I guarantee I'm going to mispronounce this, Kwanchai Maria? My apologies for getting that wrong, because I know I got it wrong. The 330-page core book was released at Gen Con, but it is expected to arrive in stores this September. It will carry an MSRP of $50. So let's swing on over to the other camera as I move Archmage, which has been pulling some duty here, holding up the book, and for some strange reason, we are, let's see, let's flip this. I have no idea why in the world did this suddenly, oh, I know why. The video is upside down. I was doing some, there we go. I was actually doing some kind of like B-roll video for some of the stuff, some of the role-playing game books that I picked up at Gen Con that I wasn't able to, I mean, because it's kind of tough to sit there and like be shooting video of a role-playing game book when you're at a booth and it's jam-packed with people and everybody's trying to see the game. So it was for Kids on Bikes as well as Outbreak Undead 2nd Edition, which are actually coming from Hunters Entertainment and Renegade Game Studios. So I guess I can mention that because we're talking about Overlight, which is from Renegade Game Studios. So I was shooting some kind of B-roll to overlay in the interview I had with Ivan Van Norman and Chris De La Rosa. So, Overlight, I don't know a whole lot about this. This was announced last year at Gen Con. It is the first foray into role-playing games for Renegade Game Studios. Figure I better put on the old reading specs here. And it looks pretty striking. I'll tell you one thing that I noticed right off the bat. When you're looking at the pages here, you'll see there's kind of like a rainbow running through the top and bottom of the pages. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I can see we also have a bookmark or bookmarks. It's like one bookmark. So that is cool. I always like to see the bookmarks in this. So it looks like a very distinctive art style and sounds like a very unique setting. So let's take a look at the back here. It says Earth, 1000 BCE. Human civilization has just begun to achieve heretofore unreached heights. The Egyptians, the Olmecs, the Babylonians, the Chinese. A race of diverse beings has been subtly guiding and protecting humankind during their formative years. And a small but vocal minority of these beings now believed that humankind was ready to take their place in the cosmos. They argued that humanity should be given the secrets of the universe and take their rightful place among the stars. They were overruled, but one dissenting voice defied this judgment and gave humankind the literal keys to creation, and with them one all-important guiding principle: do not use the black key. Little kind of Prometheus kind of theme to that. Humanity did not listen. All of reality was turned inside out. The burning heart of the world became the bright white, unending sky, and the unknowable depths of space became a vast, star-filled sea beneath. Entire continents now float in the space between, without a moon or sun to guide them. Now, 3,000 years later, the fractured remains of humanity cling to the shattered remnants of a broken world. They know nothing of their earthly origins, This is all they have ever known. Floating mountains are the norm. Intelligent bird people teach letters to the children of the elite. Moss beings pray to trees in the dark depths of unknown forests. Monks make spirit bonds with snow monkeys in ice-shrouded temples. Unknown pleasures are traded like spice and coin by masked revelers. Huge centipedes seek enlightenment while shepherding their flocks among sun-blasted expanses. People of all kinds work and play and trade in the streets of the flying metropolis of Hark, while criminals die hanging in the chains beneath. But there exist a few who yearn to be part of something larger. They know in their hearts that the world is not quite right, like a dream from which they hope to wake. They are called the Skyborn, and they have the strange ability to consciously manipulate the light from above, using it to fuel remarkable powers. In a world which was never meant to be, these Skyborn were destined for something greater. Only they can rise to become heroes beneath the never-ending Overlight. Do you want to mention, right on the back here, this says that this game is recommended for mature audiences, for ages 14 and up. So it's 14 and up, it's not 18 and up, right? It's not like Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, but they are pointing out here that this is not necessarily going to be a game for kids. So let's kind of dive on in here, start taking a look. And I am going to page through. As I mentioned, I don't know a whole lot about this system. I do not know how the mechanics work because this is the first role-playing game from Renegade Game Studios. I'm pretty clueless. Usually, you know, depending on who a game comes out from, you can normally kind of guess and say, oh, well, yeah, it's gonna have dice pools because their other games have dice pools, or it's gonna use D6s, or it's gonna use 20-sided dice. So we've got looks like a bit of flavor poetry to open up. Got an introduction. First thing I can tell you is that's a pretty big font. That is a pretty big font for the text. That's cool. I'm not arguing. I'm not complaining. What is kaleidoscopic fantasy? When we think of fantasy, most of us conjure up images of elves, wizards, and dragons. We think of tales strongly rooted in Western folklore and history, or at least in the stories of J.R.R. Tolkien. Talk a little bit about Robert E. Howard. Kaleidoscope fantasy, a term that we have ourselves created, draws its DNA from some very different places. Most importantly, the aesthetic tone is quite distinctive. Kaleidoscopic fantasy springs from the artwork of such luminaries as Roger Dean, Julie Bell, Moebius, and the early fantasy-themed work of Olivia de Barandinis. I think that's how Olivia... most of her artwork these days is much more adult-natured, but fantastic artwork, gotta say. Love Olivia's work. All right, so it's kind of talking about that sort of thing, talking about the different artwork, World of Overlight. So, if I kind of remember correctly, when I was talking to Danny, when I was doing an interview with Danny from Renegade at Gen Con, she was talking about like these different lands, these kind of almost like different realms, and I believe they might call them shards. And the way she was making it out was that humanity knows about these, but the actual inhabitants of these other realms don't actually know about us. So I thought that sounded kind of interesting. How did the world get this way? Player versus character knowledge. That's usually pretty important. So we see the different shards. Shards Nova, Zenith, Quill, Banyan, Hark, Veil, and Pyre. Talking about different virtues, different colors, different folk. I guess the folk is kind of like the people and cultures. Talking about basic rule concepts. Looks like we've got, almost looks as if this is going to be where the better your attribute or virtue or skill, what have you, is, the better you have, the higher die size you'll have. So like a D10, D6, maybe there's like a D4. Yep, I see D4. which is something that Kids on Bikes is utilized. I mean, it's not an unusual mechanic. We've seen it before. In fact, Mark H. Walker's Dark War RPG, which I'm going to share one of these days, I swear, same kind of thing, where the better you are, the higher size, the larger size die you get to utilize. So we're going to talk about the shards. So we've got the quill. So far, it seems like this will have a pretty interesting background and setting. Seems like this is kind of like a forest realm here, or shard, I guess I would say. A war without end. Zenith, the violet, I almost said violent, the Violet Peaks. Zenith Televisions, what? It's a Diamond Queen and Boundless Mirror. I think this is where we have the monks and the monkeys. Then we've got Hark, the City Magnificent. As you can see, not a ton of illustration. There's illustrations, don't get me wrong, but it looks like we are getting a lot of gaming information as opposed to getting just a lot of artwork. And don't get me wrong, I love artwork. I find artwork in RPG books really helps get my juices flowing and get the creative juices going. But there are times when there's just too much artwork, too much fluff, and not enough game information that I can utilize in my game. So looks like there's not an over-reliance on artwork here. So we've got Pyre, Liturgies of Fire and Spear. Story written in ash and iron. And we've got Nova. Looks like these are where those centipedes are. Then we got the Skyborn, so we're talking about the player characters here. Who are they? What is the Skyborn order? We got character creation. Get to choose concept, choose what folk. So a lot of game companies are trying to shy away from utilizing the phrase or word race in character creation. Now a lot of times they're going with, for an example, we have folk. They might have culture, something like that. Choose your background, choose your core virtue. Spend your character build points. Got a spirit pool and health track. Name and finalize your characters. So we've got skills. We've got skill definitions here. It's like, no, not a ton of skills. Athletics, beastways, blades, brawl, craft, folklore, inspiration, intuition, machinery, perception, performance, persuasion, resistance, resolve, science, survival, and wind lore. And then we talk about these are the different styles of character. So we've got monks, different kinds. The Hamanu, which are the ones that I think team up with the monkeys. All right. Terexians, Benyari. So you have a variety of different options as well within. And these look like these are like animal heroes. But you have different options within the archetype. So that's cool. The Harkeen, which I'm going to take a guess. These are kind of more traditional human-style characters. Air Harbor Dock Worker, Grifter, Master Historian, Performer, Street Tough. And I would think that a clever game master can come up with, variety of different kinds of characters. If what's presented in the book don't meet the needs of the players or don't really tickle the players' fancies. I'm going to take a guess that the Pyroi are more probably kind of fighter types, more apt towards violence or action. Just kind of the vibe I get. Let's see, Flameheart Hunter, Volcano Priest. Then we've got Shard Law. It says, we consider Overlight to be a narrative game, which is to say, on a spectrum of RPG rules complexity, Overlight is fairly rules light. I saw that coming. The rules are not intended to provide specific nuanced mechanics for every conceivable sort of interaction. What? No grappling rules? That's it. I'm closing. I'm kidding. Talking about tests to govern the various challenges and tasks your players can attempt. Talking about type of tests, skill tests, combat tests, open tests, combat encounters, determining an initiative, the Fury Pool, maneuvering in combat, and then it's talking about different maneuvers you can make, wounds and healing, got belongings, valuables, and wealth, experience and advancement. So the dice that are utilized looks like it might go from D4 to D12. You might start off at a D4, be able to get up to a D12. You got Radiant Power using Chroma, Wisdom Chroma. So these are sort of kind of along the lines of spells, I believe. Logic Chroma, Compassion Chroma, the Exile of Hearts, Will Chroma, and of course, if you remember correctly, these are kind of the chromas are along the lines of the focus of your character, I guess. So we got the Vigor Chroma, because I believe that all of the player characters, because they are those Skyborn, are able to utilize these sorts of things. So I don't, of course, obviously enough, I would assume like a wizard character, magic character, like priest character sort would have probably more powerful sorts of chromas that they could use. But I do think that all of the player characters get an opportunity to have these different things. So I could be completely wrong. That is a possibility. So the Zenith Order Monk Chroma. A lot of this stuff. Hamanu Chroma. So it looks like these are chromas that, based on the culture, the folk that you are, you get some of these. Yep, that's what it looks like. Banyari, Machines of Life, Needle, Frond, and Leaf, Root, Siphon the Green, the Harkeen Chroma, Discipline of the Seven, Esteemed Hospitality, Ghost Charm. So that's pretty interesting. I'm wondering, I'm hoping we run across some GM stuff here, because I've noticed as of late, it seems as if some of these new role-playing games coming out are not including a lot of GM stuff, not a lot of pages devoted specifically to the game master. And I always like to see that, as opposed to, well, you got to go pick up the game master book. I'm going to take a guess we do not have an example adventure in this. I don't know for sure. Here we go. So now we're at 239th page. We're going to get into Secret Wisdom. So I'm going to assume this is the Game Master stuff. So it even says the role of the Game Master. Game Master is storyteller. Okay, so we'll kind of try to swing through this kind of quickly. Campaign settings, talking about the various different shards. The Skyborn Order. Game Master is referee. That's funny because back in the day when we played a variety of different role-playing games, and I'm talking, we're talking like 80s, 90s, I always referred to myself as the ref. Didn't matter what the game called the Game Master. It didn't matter if it was Dungeon Master or Keeper or what have you. I always said, I'm just the ref. I'm just here to, you know, just kind of interpret rules and move the story along and things like that. So we've got myriad beings. So this looks like this might be a bit of kind of a bestiary here. Yep, kind of looks like that. Oh, yikes. That's kind of scary looking. It's like, jeez. Yeah, just my whole body opens up and it's just one big maw with big teeth. How about a kiss? A snow lion. Alright. Very distinctive art style to this book. I like it. I do. I like it. I like books. Well, granted, then we got a little bit different art style there, but I like books that kind of, you know, stick to an overarching art style, even if they've got different artists. As opposed to some books you look through and it's like, wow, that's a really cool piece of art. And then you flip a few pages and you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? What were they thinking? Why'd they put that in there? Okay, so some more of the enemies, the monsters, as well as NPC types. Oh, look at this. So there is a story. Sweet. So there is an example adventure. Nice. The Sage of the Hanging Prison. Cool. And here I was assuming, see, that's what happens when you assume. You make an ass out of you and me, right? That old gag. I assumed there wasn't going to be a beginning adventure, and here, sure enough, there is. So I'll kind of flip through this real quick. Looks like quite a few pages in here. So it looks like we've got 2 parts to it. Do we have a third part? Do we have like a third act? Yep, there we go, part 3. And an epilogue. Then we've got the character sheets. Pretty simple looking character sheet here. So see, we've got the D6, D6, D10, D6, D6, D8. Oh, these are example characters. I was going to say, why do they have the dice already assigned to them? That's kind of strange. So we've got some example characters. Some pre-gens, probably to be able to use in that adventure, actually. And of course, I am certain that you can download character sheets on the Renegade Game Studios website. Yep, there we go. That's the basic character sheet. Looks like this is probably the back of the sheet here with the various different chroma, virtues, things like that. Got an adventures note here. And then an index. Cool. I have to admit, the stock for the paper is very nice. Has a little bit of a sheen, so I apologize if there's been some glare popping up, but not a lot of a sheen to it. Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory had a lot of kind of sheen to the page, which is fine. Just makes things a little difficult when I'm shooting video. All right, so that is Overlight, when we take a dive in and take a first peek to see 333 pages. You could have picked it up at Gen Con. If you weren't at Gen Con, then of course you're going to have to wait until September to be able to pick this up. So, very cool. Looks interesting. I'm going to be doing a lot of RPG book reading this weekend because I have some... let's pop this back up rather than show it. Archmage there. I have got to go over to my brother's to keep an eye on the pets this weekend. Here I was hoping on getting a lot more of my interviews from Gen Con done this weekend, but that's probably not going to be the case because there isn't a computer over there powerful enough to render the videos, and I'm not busting everything up from the duct tape studio to go over there. So I'm going to actually be reading through quite a lot of RPG goodness this weekend. Anyway, as I mentioned, on tomorrow's show, we are going to take a look at Tiny Epic Zombies from Gallant Games, designed by Scott Alms. So this looks like a lot of fun, and it's got some heft to the box, so I know it's full of goodness. All right, anyway, that is it for today's show. So when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.